Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm your host, Kevin Schroeder, and I'm here with my co-host, the good captain.
Hello, WABC listeners and YouTube viewers. Here we are again today with a very interesting guest.
So today our guest on Cop Talk is retired New York City second-grade detective Tom Smith. Some guys say Tommy Smith. We're going to call him Tom Smith today, or whatever he wishes we call him. He's also the host of a podcast called Gold Shields. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So, Tom, why don't you tell a little bit, everyone, about your background, where you grew up and et cetera.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Inwood, up in Manhattan. My dad was a NYPD detective, so I grew up in this world, grew up idolizing him. He was my hero. He was everything I wanted to be, and I was just drawn to the job, primarily because of him and going to Yankee games and stopping at the 4-4 and stopping at the 4-1 before or after the game. So just knowing all his partners, knowing all his friends, and just being completely drawn to it. And it's all I ever wanted to do. And a lot of us in life don't get to really live out everything you want to do as a kid. And I got to, and that was the best part. And he got to see it, a big part of it. So that was pretty much it. And then grew up in Rockland County. After my dad retired, we moved up there. A little less craziness with four older sisters and get them out of the city as well. So grew up there and then got in the NYPD in 1990 and just started on a very fortunate career, which I would do all over again if I had to.
Now, when you came on in 1990, what was your first assignment?
I was in the 3-0. And
3-0 precinct,
yep,
okay.
In upper Manhattan, when everything was going on there, when the craziness of the 3-0 happened, I was there. So living through that. But with all that put aside, it was a great place to learn. It was a great place to work. The cops who were there, the neighborhood you were in, you were busy. And that's what I wanted to be because, my dad always said, if you're going to learn it the right way, and be busy. So you are forced to learn the job, even if it's a crazy tempo, right. You're going to learn it quick, and you're going to learn it from the best cops, and that's what happened to me. And I love the busyness of it, and being on 4 to 12s, and then into anti-crime right after that was just a amazing place to work.
That's very true. When I left the police academy in 1959, a long time ago, I went right to the 79th precinct in Brooklyn, which at that time was a real bucket of blood. And some of the fellow recruits that I went through the academy with went to the cushy precincts in Manhattan, and they were amazed that I made so many arrests in such a short time. I would ask them, how many arrests have you made? Oh, none. How many you made? One. When I maybe had 10, 15. So it's true. When you go to a really tough, busy precinct, you learn the job very quickly.
So when I came on in January of 1985, I was assigned NSU 5. They had NSUs back then. Right. I don't know when you came on what they called it.
They just finished them.
Just finished up. So I was in NSU 5. We turned out of the 3-0 precinct. We worked the 3-0, the 3-4, the 2-6, the 2-4, 5th Division, and then they'd send you the pressure point here and there at the 2-8 precinct, But yeah, and it was rock and rolling back then. It's funny, when I was graduating from the academy, friends of mine who were going to, as Ed says, some softer, NSUs, they said, Kev, when you finish NSU, you're going to have medals up to here. I'm like, why is that? They said, you go to one of the busiest houses in the city of New York, And
it's true.
Yeah.
But it was great because, like I said, you learned every aspect of it.
Yeah.
How to work on the street, how to talk to people, the paperwork, going down to court. You just learned it quick. And it just made going to work easier every day because you were just more experienced all the time.
Going back to when you came on the job and you were in the 3-0 precinct, what was your next assignment? What did you do in the 3-0 precinct? Were you in anti-crime? Where'd you go from there?
Yeah, I did patrol only for a couple of years, and then got picked up in anti-crime. I was in anti-crime from 94 to 96, and then left the 3-0, went to Bronx Narcotics, which was, I still tell people, one of the best places to work. At that time, the way narcotics was run in the city with what was going on and the team I had, we had an amazing team, which made it all the better. My partner and I did a lot. Our team did a lot. And you just look forward to going to work every day because it was like a new job.
Yeah.
going from a precinct and what you dealt with in a precinct to narcotics was like a brand new job. And going to work in your jeans and T-shirt every day wasn't bad either.
Yeah, didn't have to shave every day either.
Nothing.
Although they don't have to shave today anyway. But, back then you had to shave.
Yep.
Clean shaven. But I'm sorry. So you were...
No, it was all right. Did all that. We did a lot of big cases. Did one big case with the DEA. Took down one of the largest kilo seizures ever in Bronx Narcotics. Did a case with them. Got 115 keys from a delivery from Venezuela up through Miami to the Bronx. And that was ours. So that was a big case. That was great. That was just a good time of just doing police work.
Exactly. Having fun at it. And then after narcotics?
Went to the gang unit in the Bronx. Our narcotics team actually became the first gang unit in the Bronx back then. So we just, it was basically the same because all the gangs are drug related. That's where they're financing their gang activities. So it was pretty much the same thing. It was just a different name to our team. And did that for a couple of years and then went to the 5-2 Ram. I hooked up with my old partner from narcotics again, which was great because we're like brothers. We still talk to this day all the time. And then in the middle of that, 9/11 happened. So when 9/11 happened, I was contacted by a former sergeant of mine, asked me where I was, what I was doing, that he wanted to get me down to the Joint Terrorism Task Force with the FBI, which ended up happening after, the background checks and security clearances and all that. Ended up going down to the Joint Terrorism Task Force where I spent the last 17 years of my 30-year career down there.
Wow. Joint Terrorist Task Force. That's a great detail, still is. And is that the unit that, no, Intel has the guys assigned throughout the world,
Intel
right?
does, right.
Intel, right.
Yes.
Tell us about your shooting involving 3 robbery perps.
Yeah, that was in January 15, 1993, a month after I got married, so my wife loved that part. Wow. We were, you've heard all the stories and you've talked to so many cops that most of the craziest things that happened, you're not supposed to be there, or you weren't supposed to be working, or it's not your tour. And that's what this was. Me and my partner had court that morning that we normally did 4 to 12s. Got back from court early, asked for lost time. And the boss just said, hey, we're kind of low in cars. Can you just jump in a car for a little while? Let the job, let's handle all the jobs. Once we're back to, just taking care of everything, you can take off. No problem. Jump in the car. And we were waiting for one of our co-workers to cash his check in the bank on 145 in Broadway and get alerted to something going on in the supermarket across the street. And that supermarket had a reputation of just chasing people for stealing apples. So that's what we initially thought it was until more and more people said something's going on. So we went over there and got stopped by one of the employees saying they just got robbed by 3 guys with guns. They tied up the security guard and they were in a car coming up 144 Street. They carjacked the livery cab. They're coming up to the corner. So we pretty much cut the car off. They leaned out of the car, started shooting at us. We returned fire. They took off going northbound on Broadway and got stopped by the officer who was in the bank. Heard me on the radio, heard the shots. So he came out and stopped the car. One of the perps leaned out of the car and shot him in the leg. So he went down, and we had pretty much a shootout with them in the back seat of the car and us in the back of the car on the street. So we ended up, we caught all 3, shot 2 of them. One of them fought it in trial. He was found guilty, ended up getting 115 years in jail. Career criminal, bad family, bad brothers, very well known in that area. And we found out later that this group was actually wanted for 17 supermarket robberies throughout the city. Wow. Ralph ended up being okay. He got 3 quarters because the bullet blew his hamstring out when it exited his body. But he was okay, and we all ended up walking away all right.
Cap?
That's a hell of a story.
It was a hell of a day.
No, but you're right. You're right about the unexpected happening. Mm-hmm. I can tell you a story. In Brooklyn, this cop went into place for a cup of coffee, and there was a robbery that happened outside. So he steps out in the street, and people are chasing after the guy. He has no idea what's going on. Then when he learns it's a robbery, he takes out his gun and he trips, and he discharged firearm discharge accidentally, and the guy stopped. The perp stopped.
It's
And
crazy.
he winds up getting a medal for something he didn't even know about. You know,
Crazy.
you at one time went to Afghanistan, right, on one of your special assignments. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I did. In 2009, when I was in the Joint Terrorism Task Force, it actually began in around November 2008. Got notified when I came into work one day, and I was in the middle of running a completely other case that I was really busy on and traveling a lot on. And when the supervisor special agent asked me to come into his office, I fully anticipated it being about my case. And he said, hey, you know, we need to put your case on hold. As a New York Times reporter got grabbed in Afghanistan with his driver, and you're going to handle it with one of the other guys. So, okay. So we start kind of planning how we're going to attack this, running an international kidnapping case of a New York Times reporter, which elevates the political realm of this to a really, really high level of D.C. being involved, the White House being involved, State Department being involved. But the good part about it, and the easier part before I get to actually go in there, we came to an agreement with the New York Times that we were not going to publicize this. So no one knew this was going on, which helped us out a lot, just pressure-wise and timeline-wise. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't on the news. No one really knew about it. So in March of 2009, I head to Afghanistan to run this case on the ground there, and ended up being there for 3 months, working really close with the CIA, working close with one of the Navy SEAL teams up in Bagram, Navy Intel, you know, all that. So it was one hell of an experience with going over there. And I get asked a lot what it was like. And it's like going back 3,000 years in a time machine. It's dirt, rocks, and bad guys. That's all that was there. But the experience was great. We ended up coming up with a plan because of a source that I developed there, along with the agency. And my source that we used a lot ended up being the #1 heroin dealer in the entire country. Wow. So I needed a source. I'm not from there, so we needed someone on the ground who knew the bad guys, knew the terrain, knew how it all worked over there, and worked very well with him. He helped us out a lot, and in the end ended up getting him home and getting him out of there.
Well, why was he kidnapped in the first place?
Just a ransom grab. They knew he was over there to do a story, you know, that for the magazine. And they just saw an opportunity and they grabbed them. And this particular network that was over there, a Al-Qaeda affiliated group, was into kidnappings. So we knew who had them. It was just a matter of locating the numerous places that they had locations at throughout Afghanistan and pinpointing where exactly he was being held, which took a lot of work, a lot of help from the NSA, a lot of help from locals, especially the source that we had, and the intelligence from the military side as well.
You also had top secret clearance. Can you tell us about that?
No.
That's why it's top secret.
Well, you don't have to tell us your special assignments.
It was, it was something that everyone over there has. You get a national security clearance, your top secret clearance, along with different other levels of clearance, depending on what you're working on, you know, from the agency, from NSA, depends on what you're working on, with different clearances that you either get read into or just have all the time. And you know, it's a very serious thing, and I took it always very serious. There were times that a lot of things I was working on, I wasn't able to share with my family, and Afghanistan being one of them. You know, they knew I was leaving for around 3 months, but my family had no idea why I was going there, you know, which is hard to do. You know, as an NYPD detective and cop, we tell stories. I did this today, I did that today. You know, we've all gone through it. So when that actually has to stop, it takes a little getting used to of what you can share and what you can't share. But my family and my wife, we've been together for 35 years now, you know, understood it. and never really asked anymore. You know, if I came up and said, hey, I have to go here because of a case we're working on. Okay, you know, she understood, so that helped a lot. But you know, it was a big responsibility of what you had with the information and cases we were running, not being able to share it with anyone. So it was just a big responsibility to have, but everyone was under the same umbrella of having those. So you just got used to not sharing things.
Were you able to tell your wife where you were going?
Just Afghanistan. That was it. And again, she didn't know why, because like I mentioned, it wasn't on the news, so she couldn't put two and two together of why I was over there. Once I got home and we got him out, and then it was on the news, then I was able to tell her, you know, yeah, that's where we were.
How was the food there?
It depends where you are. If you were up in Bagram, was a great place to go, the military base in Bagram, because they actually had contracts with like Pizza Hut or Burger King. So that's what you ate. But the local food, you kind of stayed away from. The embassy food was okay. You put you got addicted to hot sauce. You just put hot sauce on everything. Everything.
Everything tastes good with hot sauce.
Chicken, pizza, rice, whatever it was that you had, you put hot sauce on it. I tell everyone, when you went into the dining hall, you have your salt and pepper and forks and spoons and all that. Then you had about 60 bottles of hot sauce on like the top shelf because everyone used it. And that helped a lot. But it was different. Again, just getting used to it. It was a different way of life. It was a different way to live while you were over there. So it was just another aspect of getting used to it.
I liked Afghan bread. Did you ever have that?
I may have.
It was like soft pizza dough, sort of. And you just pull it with your fingers.
Oh, I can't think of the name of it, but yes, okay. It was. Yeah, you heated it on just openly on like a flame. Yep.
And you pulled it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You pulled
yep.
It was pretty good.
It was like pizza dough.
Where'd you have that, Cap? In Brooklyn or in Afghanistan?
Well, my girlfriend of mine used to
Oh, man. Tom, what was your favorite assignment on a New York City Police Department?
Probably narcotics.
Really?
Probably not. JTTF was a different world. You know, that was just stuff that none of us ever really dealt with before, just on a street level. With the amount of traveling I did, having the opportunity to go to 18 different countries that I was in and dealing with, high-level security agencies and representatives from their governments and ambassadors and all that, that was different. That was just, in and of itself, a really high-level, great place to work. But when it came to just police work, narcotics was the best. I was fortunate. We had a great team, very tight group of guys. We did a lot of search warrants, so everyone knew everyone's role and everyone did the same thing on every search warrant.
Yeah.
No one, hey, let me try this one, let me try that. When you have to sit around for hours doing surveillances, you become a tight team.
Oh, yeah.
And that was probably the best place I was.
And I'm sure you had good bosses, too. That helps.
Yeah, that helps. But it is, because when you get to that level, the best bosses, as both of you know, are the ones that go,
Right.
Go ahead.
Right.
Keep me in the loop. Let me know what's going on.
Right.
And that's what was there. We had a very well-known team, so reputation-wise was easier to just go out there and take care of what we need to take care of and get the results, luckily, that we got.
You're right about narcotics. I spent 7 years in narcotics in the 60s, and I learned so much there. I learned about search warrants, wiretapping, surveillance, things that the average detective did not know in the local squads. And so when I went into a detective squad, I was like the search warrant guy,
Right.
because I knew how to get them. I would type up my own affidavits in the station house.
Yeah.
So there was an awful lot of experience coming out of assignments like that.
And more cases, you go to trial in narcotics.
Yeah.
I was in narcotics 5 years. So,
Right.
a lot, even when I went to the Bureau, I was still going to trial for like another year, with all
Yeah.
the cases we had.
And that's where you kind of learn how to be a detective. You go from patrol, anti-crime a little bit, not much, but then once you get into, database checks, surveillances, kind of getting flow charts together of different groups and detecting who's the main guys,
Right.
who's not, who's the runners, so you start to get really a feel for detective work in narcotics. And that's where I got promoted out of as well. So
Yeah. It's, squad's different than, narcotics detectives are do different work, obviously, than a squad. However, but no, search warrants, more experience with search warrants, as you said, you're doing more, as the captain said, actually, doing more with search warrants, and court appearances and trials, testifying in trial. Much more experience, I think, probably, than the Bureau. Back
absolutely.
then, anyway.
Yeah.
Did you know a famous detective, he claims to be a famous detective in Bronx Narcotics, Spank?
Oh yeah. Ran into him once or twice. Yeah, we were there at the same time, and we were his team and my team were part of the 4-4 teams that covered the 4-4 precinct, and Spank was great. Had a couple of football games together.
Yeah.
Yankee fan. So
Big Yankee fan. He was on a Yankee Stadium detail.
Yes.
He was my partner for 10 years in Midtown North Squad,
Okay.
and we're still very good friends today.
Oh, yeah.
His son's also on the job now. But great times. And when you were in JTTF, do you remember what the manpower was? How many detectives, cops, how many people in?
JTTF changed a lot. It was started in '81. With all the domestic terrorism going on, FALN, and all that. So it kind of stayed that way for decades. On September 10th, 2001, there were only 11 detectives assigned to JTTF.
Whoa.
That was it. Very small unit, very small team that filtered out to other FEI teams that were in there. And then 9/11 happened, and the New York office became the largest JTTF in the country. We ended up having, when I left, about 65 different agencies assigned to the task force with 3 different divisions, 3 different branches: international, domestic, and intelligence. And we went from 11 detectives up in the probably 125, 150 range. And that was just detectives. And that wasn't sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and the chiefs that were there. So it became a monster, especially in this country. And everything hits on New York, so that's why being there was so interesting, because you got you covered the world. So if you had to go somewhere because something was touching on New York, you went, and no one ever, blinked about it. You had to go, you went. And that was a just fascinating place to work because of what you were dealing with. You weren't dealing with the crackhead on the corner. You were dealing with someone who wanted to blow the world up.
Right.
And it was a big responsibility of ours coming off of 9/11 to make sure that didn't happen again. So that's what all of us always thought about, of preventing that from happening again. And that was always on our mind.
Yeah, Cap?
Your post-retirement career, you have a podcast.
Yeah, we do.
Is that the only thing you've done, or you've done other things?
Well, we have that. The podcast takes up 99% of the time with the production of it and the interviews that we do. But we also have Dan and I, my partner on the podcast, who is my sergeant in the gang unit.
Okay.
And again in JTTF. So we were always good friends, even back in 1999 when we first met. We just clicked. We became good friends and just stayed friends, and then started the podcast together. But we also have another business that we have called Carry Impact.
Tell us about that.
Impact is a alternative to pepper spray that we developed and is making its way around the country. And anyone who's ever had pepper spray on them knows it's horrible and it doesn't work. It works on cops, great. So what we did was we targeted the area of a bad guy that you have to take out, and that's his eyes. So Impact is an extreme eye irritant. You get sprayed with it, you cannot see. It burns your eyes, but the best parts about it, which is the complete opposite of pepper spray, is it has no impact on your respiratory system. There is no cross-contamination. So I can spray someone with it and jump right on them and nothing's getting on me. Absolutely nothing. You can use it inside, in a car, in a room, and the only person impacted by it is the person you're spraying. And the cleanup, is one of the best selling points with police departments in this country. Is you need a half a bottle of water. You pour it over their eyes, you wipe it away, and in about 30 seconds you are fine and back to normal.
Wow.
No need for any medical attention at all. We just got back from Florida. We just did a presentation down there with about 30 departments who loved it, who couldn't believe what they were watching, because we've all been brought up in our careers the way pepper spray works. Mm-hmm. And when you see the absolute opposite of that even be more effective, it's quite an impression that we leave when people are watching it. It's great to talk about it, but actually seeing it work in front of you is a big shock to people. And we're making a way around the country. We have a big presence in Texas with it. A lot of security companies are picking it up. A lot of ER security companies in hospitals. Yeah. Because of everything going on there, and the ability to use it inside is a big deal. So those two things take up all my retirement time.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, do you have to? Anyone could just purchase this, or you have to be?
Nope. Anyone can purchase it. We sell it to
online,
law enforcement officers. Yep. Our website is carryimpact.com. You can order everything, and the best part, they're not even out yet. Our keychains have just been developed, so they will also be on our website within the next week or so.
Great.
So they'll be out there. And for the public and the police, there's also a invisible UV dye marker in it. So you're getting tagged when you get sprayed. You can wipe it off your eyes, but you're going to be covered in kind of a purple or blue ink, sort of like the dyes in banks.
Right, like the money dye, yeah.
So that's a big plus for the public, because you don't want to stay around when you use it. You get out of there, call 911. Let them come, shine a light on them, and they can get ID'd that way.
And when did you actually start this company?
We started this really about 2 years ago, but it's been really out for the past year or so. And it's been quick. We first came out of the IACP conference in San Diego a couple of years ago. We opened a booth up with it, and the reception there was great. And then, the website got developed and more of the word got out there. So we've been traveling around a lot, doing a lot of expos, doing a lot of demonstrations around the country. So it's going really well. And that, with the podcast keeps us very busy.
And how'd you get involved with this production?
It was just something Dan and I thought of, a need for an additional equipment that cops can use. They're so focused on their taser and all that. Why not before that have something that they can go to? And we talk to cops around this country, and the amount of departments that don't use pepper spray, they have it, but they won't use it because of the cleanup, of the exposure, of it blowing back in someone's, in the cop's face. So they just skip that part of a tool that they have on their body and go right to their taser. We said we need to give them that other alternative other than their taser to use in any given situation. Car stops. Yeah. You have that unruly driver with a carload of people. You can't taser them because you're not leaning into the car and doing that. So you have our stuff, Impact. You can spray that driver and no one else in that car is going to be affected by it.
Interesting.
So you take care of him, get him out of the car, and, go about your business.
Now, what about your podcast?
The podcast is a great. We're just so proud of it. We started 3 years ago, and what we wanted to do, and the basis of it was, there's so many good stories out there, as you know, doing yours, that people don't know about. They may know about the case, they may know about a military mission of hearing it on the news, but don't know what went into it or who was involved in it. So what we wanted to do is get the people on who did those investigations, who did those missions, and tell their own story about what happened. And one of the things we say is we give a backstage pass to, some of these investigations or military missions. And the stories that we hear blow our minds sometime. We'll know a portion of it, but we make sure with our guests, don't tell us everything, because we want our reaction to it on the show to be authentic with what it is. And we don't have a script to the show. It's 3 of us or 4 of us sitting around talking about a particular case or mission. And some of the things that we hear are just mind-blowing. And the reception of it's been so great. You know, nothing we could have thought of. We didn't know where we were going to go with it. Like I said to you earlier, Kev, we had 7 shows lined up when we started this and didn't really have an idea what number 8 was going to be until it just picked up steam and it just took off.
Yeah, great.
And we just recorded our, I think, 118th show.
Great.
The other day.
Yeah.
115th just got released. So it's going really well. And we're really proud of it. And what the feedback we get from people makes it all worthwhile with, wow, I didn't know that. You know, I didn't know that about the story. Or having victims on of certain crimes. Like we had one of Ted Bundy's victims on who lived, you know, telling her story. We just recorded a show of a young woman whose entire family was killed by BTK.
Wow.
You know, and her living her life through that. You know, so the stories, like I said, you may hear who BTK is, but not a particular, you know, behind the scene look at one of his victims or some of his victims. So it's great the people that we get to meet and know now who are friends of ours now, from SEAL Team 6 guys to LAPD detectives to, you know, the guys who were up on the roof during the Benghazi attack. You know, all that. So it's been a great ride. We're happy with it.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
So your podcast is different than ours. You're focused more on cases, and we're focused on individuals like yourself. Mm-hmm. How do people reach you?
Well, we're on YouTube at youtube.com/@goldshields. Every week, a new show is out, and we're on every audio channel that you can think of: Apple, Spotify, iHeart.
Right, all social media.
Yep, all of them. Yep. And our website is thegoldshieldshow.com.
What about your products?
That is carryimpact.com. You can order it right online, right there, and stay tuned for the keychains. They're going to be on it, which is great. We just tested them out the other day.
Looking forward to that. Sign me up for that for the kids.
You got it.
If the captain's agent allows him, maybe someday we could be on your show, you know?
I'm in. Absolutely. That's a given.
He has an agent.
That's a given. We love it. You know, because it's all about getting messages out there.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and getting these stories out there and a big part was all the crap we went through, you know, with defund the police and all that, you know, kind of got under our skin and got out there like, hey, all you're hearing are these bad stories. Let's spin it around and get these good stories out there. And that was a big premise of getting the show done.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of the reasons we started our show. We had an idea in 2018. Actually, we're going to do something else with someone else, but then COVID hit, and our plan was to, you know, there's so many shows out there that are negative against cops, you know, throughout the country and throughout the world, global. So we said, let's have a show, you know, cop talk, simple as that. Just to guys like yourself come on and tell their story, and there's some great stories out there, and there's also we've also had some celebrities on that are pro cop, because there's so many celebrities that are against the cop, or it's the end thing to do or to be. In vogue, but at the end of the day, there's so many good people out there who want to help raise money, including like Stevie Van Zandt, who's a good friend of mine, raises money for widows and children every year. And there's so many. So we'd like to have everybody come on here and tell it like it is. Tell what's the real deal is. You know?
Yeah, you're so right. You know, there's so many people out there who are on our side and in our corner that people don't know about.
True.
And to get them out there means a lot. It means a lot just hearing it from them. You know, it's great you read an article in a magazine or whatever, or online about someone supporting the police, but then when they're sitting in front of you and having that conversation and hearing the emotion in their voice of how much we mean to them, just puts a whole different spin and light on it, and it's great to hear that.
It really does. Tom, you registered with the 9/11 program?
Yes.
Good. Okay, good. I want to make sure we X that to everybody, especially you girls who have been down there. Yeah. You know, you'd be surprised who is not registered or haven't followed up, and you have to, because not only for yourself but also for your family.
Sure.
So, Kat?
Well, you're not in competition with us because we do different things. We also have the advantage of being hooked up with this station, radio WABC, which has worldwide, people all over the world hear us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very proud to be associated with this station. Yes.
Never competition. We're all one family.
One big family.
So it's all good.
Yep. And we say that all the time, we've had so many people that have their shows, like you just said. I've been on numerous shows, Danny has, and then they'll come on ours because it's a big sandbox.
Yeah.
And the more information gets out there, just the better it is for everybody.
We would like to be on your show whenever you're ready.
You got it.
Yeah, we loved it. That would be great.
No,
Thank
that'd
you.
be awesome.
Like
That'd
I said,
be
once
fantastic.
his agent talks to him. But on that note, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Cop Talk. And you could follow us on X at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Cap?
And you can also view our guests and Kevin and I on YouTube.
All social media. With that said, I'd like to thank our guest today, Tom Smith, retired detective. God bless you, Tom, and good luck. And one more time in regards to the spray.
Carryimpact.com.
Okay.
It's all on there, all the information about the spray and ordering it right online. And give it a shot. It's a great product.
Great.
And it's making a difference out there for sure.
So once again, folks, if you like what you hear, you could subscribe to Cop Talk. Also, until next time, God bless you, God bless America, God bless law enforcement throughout the world, and God bless all our military throughout the world.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.